It's really exciting to get to talk to you too. It feels like you were some of the first lawyers, at least in global law firms like Quinn's, that we were in touch with, who are really like all in, sleeves rolled up, figuring out how this technology might make a difference for the people you serve. At least that's what we heard from you very early on, and it's been really fun to stay in touch with you. But so for our listeners, just starting from the beginning, Chris, tell us a little bit about what Quinn's approach to using AI has been. What are the goals, and how have you seen it have an impact already? And to the extent you're comfortable talking about your roadmap, we would love to hear as much as you can share.
Absolutely, Bridget, and thank you, and thanks again for having us. It's been a very unconventional journey. It's like much we do at Quinn. We don't have we're known for not having a lot of structure or bureaucracy. Sometimes that can be difficult because it's not always clear what to do, but it also means you can just do things. And so about a year ago, I started using ChatGPT at the beginning. It sort of was clear to me that this would be a useful thing to know how to do, played around with it a bunch. And then when Claude 3, I think, came out about a year ago, I had my ultimate aha moment. Like, oh my God, this Claude Opus can really write. I mean, it writes well and can edit well. And so I reached out to our head of IT, John Stambellos, and said, basically, I don't want to have to do this thing where I'm anonymizing client names or I'm, dealing and worrying about client confidentiality. And so it really restricts me in what I can upload. Can we get an enterprise version? Even on a pilot. And he agreed. He was eager to find AI tools. He was thrilled, I think, to find out that I had found value in one. And so I started to think about what can this do for us actually? And I had a couple notions I think we're still working through, so the roadmap is a bit fuzzy, but one was just put it in the hands of the people. Like, let's get people who are smart and talented and creative to just start playing with it like I am and to, share information and to share pitfalls and techniques and tools and to build some enthusiasm. I think I had observed that at other places there was a much more conservative approach where there was a lot of concern about client confidentiality, a ton of concern about hallucinations. And I said, hold on, let's solve for those, right? Let's make sure that everything that leaves the firm with our names on it, someone has, site checked and rigorously reviewed as they're supposed to do anyway. And then let's get an enterprise model so that we don't have to worry about client data leakage. And then let's get it to people and let's encourage them. Don't think of it as cheating. Think of it as like a new tool. And why wouldn't you use it? And so that's been incredibly successful. I think we've got hundreds of people now on it at the firm. We started sort of from the bottom up. We started with, young associates, staff members, people who I felt like would be, tech early adopters who would get into it, who would use it responsibly, and who would share their learnings. We created something called the QE Skunk Works program, which was a nod to Lockheed Martin's innovative R&D efforts. And so we had our own Slack group, we had our own Zoom. There was no credit to anyone. There was no billable hours. It was just if you want to, learn about this and mess around with it and share your findings, join. And a ton of enthusiasm. It was really, really rewarding. Um, and so that's been a huge part of it is just establishing a culture where people are thinking about AI, using AI, sharing with each other's how they use it, and trying to build that way, which I think has been great. The other two um, aspects of it that sort of came to mind. One were okay. We've got to. One is we've got to find out what tools are out there. There's a ton of venture capital money chasing this market. It seems like all the brilliant machine learning engineers at the FANG companies were able to go out and get VC investments, and the VC said, "Well, try law. Lawyers need AI," and so you saw a lot of products that don't really serve our needs, but there could be a lot of temptation for firms to just grab something. So I wanted to make sure that we were smart about what we bought, and that we, had a lot of bandwidth to look at everything. And then the third piece is really thinking through, well, what can this do for our data, right? Because Quinn Emanuel has a lot of information about itself and about what we do, but it's hard to get at historically, and it's hard to organize and classify and use. And so starting to explore, well, are there things that we can do to better understand our business or our practice, using AI tools to unearth some of that? And so that was sort of the roadmap, and what we needed most of all was someone to run that every day because I, am very much a practicing litigator. I, won Litigator of the Week, in March for a big, trial court victory in front of another, Judge McCormick in Delaware. That I was able to use AI in that case, and that was really exciting, but I can't do all of those things all the time. And so when I reached out to John last year and suggested that we not only get Claude, I also asked him if we could hire someone to run this operation full time and do the training and culture building and, evaluation of tools. And how we landed Jen Reeves, I will never understand, but that has been the number one most valuable thing we've done. Jen has been a huge value add, and to have someone who's committed every day to building enthusiasm, to teaching people how to use it, to getting people on board, and who genuinely like loves doing it, like really, I think gets the same kick out of it that I do, is just such a treat. So that's been the primary pillar as it turns out.
That's amazing. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but you literally followed like the roadmap that Ethan Mollick has laid out in a lot of his scholarship of leadership, crowd, and lab. You know, you have the crowd, you have everybody in, which I think is exactly the right way to do it. You know, only you know the best ways it's going to impact your workflow. You have this Skunk Works lab team that's, really, driving, and you have the top leadership at the firm not only supporting it, but investing in it. And so I don't know if you knew you were doing all of that. Jen, were you pulling this all together to follow a roadmap that was proven to work, or you guys are just brilliant and should have written the scholarship that Ethan's getting credit for?
We're avid Ethan Mollick readers, as well, and when you kind of, eat, sleep, breathe, like, the Innovator's Handbook and those different books like that, it kind of just seeps into your brain, so when you think about, "Oh, how should we get this new technology, adopted by people?" Like, well, what was the aha moment for me? What turned that on? And it just kind of and Chris takes all the credit here as well for kind of setting this up. I got to inherit the Skunk Works group, which was amazing. And yeah, it was a cross-sectional group of the firm, so we weren't limited to just people that were too busy because they're working on, high profile things or just people that weren't really interested, so they were kind of forced to do this because they're in this leadership position. We really got, a good group going, and then I was able to, build off of that. But yeah, I don't know, Chris, I know that you're an Ethan Mollick
Yeah,
reader.
I would just say it's funny, it's sort of like how learning works, right? Like I didn't listen or read anything by Ethan's that I wrote down and said this is what we'll do, but I am not surprised that we followed his roadmap because I've been reading him since the beginning, and sometimes I'll go back and read something he wrote and realize, oh, that was probably pretty influential for me. And I didn't, it just sort of goes in the brain, and then later on I find it's really Ethan. I think the other guy is this guy, Andre Karpathy, who used to be at Tesla and OpenAI, who posts a lot. And when, he says these things that I sometimes wonder, is that really obvious or is that like it? And he seems to have it a lot. And so I think the two of them have been going in my brain in various ways and coming out probably months later. The approach makes a ton of sense. And I think it's worked well versus, as Jen said, more of a top down approach where a certain AI tool is mandated and it's coming from a direction where people who are practicing don't really understand, what the goal is or what they're supposed to be doing. So I would encourage other organizations to read Ethan and to think about his lessons because we've had a lot of success with that roadmap.
I wanted to home in too on another thing that you said there, Chris. It's so funny you said that, Bridget, because as he was talking, I wrote down lab leader, crowd, eat the mug. So definitely following that roadmap. But the other thing that you said, Chris, Bridget and I have literally said on this podcast before, we listen to another podcast called the Dwarkesh podcast, which tends to be really technical. And we were listening to two technologists a few weeks ago. Are they from Claude? I can't remember. And from Anthropic, and kept saying they were encountering roadblocks and they kept saying, "So we solved for it and we're going to solve for this." And you said that, Chris. You said, "I went to John and I said, we need to solve for this." And when we go out on the road or we're working with firms or Bridget's working with her team, it's such a mindset difference when you encounter lawyers where it's like, well, there's hallucinations and we can't do this versus people who are like, there's hallucinations and we need to solve for this so that we can figure out how to do this. And it seems like such a simple thing, but it's also everything about being successful in this arena. So I thought it was interesting that you just literally said those words.
Oh, yeah, and it is such an unlock once you get past that and you can realize, "Oh, wait a minute, we have to solve for that anyway." Someone should be carefully site checking everything, and not just for the, blue book abbreviation for amalgamated, but actually the substance of it really matters. I mean, that's what we're vouching for, and so the junior attorneys, suddenly become in this position where they're really the masters of reality. They're the ones who are checking to make sure that what we say is aligning with some demonstrable reality, the case law, the facts, um, what have you. And so that's been huge. And I just think culturally, having that kind of mentality where we're not freaking out about it, we're sensibly addressing it and then encouraging and getting excited about when I can tell sometimes when someone uses Claude, and I think that's another thing that you learn is what are the giveaways of AI use, and it's not about transforming legal industry. It's about a new culture. That sort of framing of sentences you start to see a lot. But when I see work and it's well done, and I know someone used Claude, I applaud them. I said, "This is great. We, cranked out a summary for a client on a Friday afternoon before a holiday weekend." That most firms probably wouldn't get to until next week, but we did it. It's beautiful. It's informative. It's correct, and it was both easier and higher quality. And so I just find that the teams that I'm on and leading are adopting it really fast, and they're able to move faster and be more creative. And so it's really the most exciting time I've ever had to practice. So it's great.